think a lot of people not only don't feel any kind of ownership over the work they're doing, but apparently they don't feel a whole lot of ownership over the decisions that they've made. This is something we see frequently with the student debt crisis, the student loan issues, and the fact that Democrats are trying to push to forgive all student loan debt if they can. Not the Democratic Party officially, but many people in the party want all student loan debt to be forgiven. Joe Biden was pushing for this. Obviously, the Supreme Court wasn't having it, but we see here in some data that was published by Axios here that young Americans are likely to blame the Supreme Court and Republicans for a lack of debt forgiveness. Now, here's a radical idea. Maybe if you took out loans, the person you should blame for the fact that you are in debt is not the Supreme Court and not the Republican Party, but yourself. That said, I'm sympathetic to some of the arguments that advocates for student loan debt forgiveness make, just in the sense that if someone's already paid off more than they actually owed, but because they've been paying it off for so long and have such a high interest rate that they're still in the hole, I do think there's something about that which is upsetting, especially considering these loans are federally guaranteed, so there isn't the same level of risk for the lenders who are collecting this massive interest rate. I hear all of that. That said, it's hard to be sympathetic when people who statistically are making significantly more than people without college degrees are demanding that those people pay their debts off for them, and people who also are earning at the same level as people who did pay off their degrees but had to take less money in the moment in order to pay that off, and they want them to have their wages redistributed or their salary redistributed to pay that debt off. So just to give you guys an idea of the numbers here, if you graduate with a doctorate degree, your median earnings are $97,000 per year. Your unemployment rate is about 1%. If you have a master's degree, your median salary is like $77,000, about $78,000, and your unemployment rate's about 2%. When you get down to somebody with a high school diploma, your median salary is $38,000 a year, and you have an unemployment rate of 3.7%. So people who have doctorates, people who have degrees, they make significantly more than people who don't have these degrees. They also are significantly less likely to be unemployed. So the idea that you could spend 4 to 6 years in an academic institution, even longer than that, depending on the track you were on, and accumulate debt throughout that time period, and then step out into the workforce after having all, many, if not all in some circumstances, of your living expenses taken care of through that 4 to 6 years, and then enter into the workforce not having had a job before, but being able to make more money than people who had a job through that 4 to 6 year period, 4 to 8 year period, depending on your track, however long you took, is totally insane and totally selfish, in my opinion.
Part of it, I think, is that people expect that if they study something, they're going to be able to get a job in that field, and that getting a job in that field should be able to pay off their student loans. And I think that that's short-sighted as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to college and you study gender and then you get a degree in, philosophy or whatever, like, why would you think that you're immediately going to be able to get a professorship and pay off your degree with that? Mm-hmm. The idea is that you go to school. Sure, you can study what you want, but you have to then get a job that's going to pay your bills, with the salary that you make. So I think that the biggest problem is the unrealistic expectations of the students who take out these loans.
I feel like the loan system, and I am not an economics person, but it seems to me like it's just completely broken. I know there is an argument for, like, you took out the loan, so you know the consequences. It does seem crazy to me that the federal government gets to say, you can't default on this loan, and also we will ultimately decide if we'll forgive it or not. Like, this seems like a broken system. If you could default on student loans, would you issue them, right? Like, a bank would take into account, if you're getting a loan for a house, they take into account the kind of money you make, your financial history, and then they make a decision. Does the federal government take into account what we need in terms of jobs? So, like, if you're a nursing student, do you get a better interest rate if you take out a student loan? Like, are we giving loans to people where there is also jobs waiting for them at the end? That system seems like it makes more sense than what we currently have, which is
Agreed.
Like, you're 18 and can take out massive amounts of debt to study whatever you think may or may not, based on nothing, make money and be able to pay off this loan.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be the same system that we have for every other type of loan out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that if financial institutions weren't having these loans subsidized, they would be more careful about who they were going to give loans out to. I think other things might be taken into consideration if the whole system wasn't rigged by these federally subsidized student loans. You might even have financial institutions considering not only the major person has and the likelihood of getting a job and what they might earn at that job if they graduate, but also the likelihood of them graduating. What kind of student were they in high school? And ultimately, I think the loans would be significantly less expensive overall. The National Bureau of Economic Research published a paper several years ago where they essentially confirmed that Universities and colleges respond to the widened access and easily available money by doing, guess what? Raising the
tuition.
prices.
Yeah,
Look at
they
that.
sure do.